Yeah, hey everyone. So we had been discussing about the triple point and the phase diagram of the water system in our previous video, and we also mentioned that the triple point is an an important aspect of the phase diagram of the water system over here, be it any system actually. And since we are discussing the water system specifically, so we are mentioning the name often once again. Okay. So this was the triple point over here in the phase diagram of water system. Another aspect, another important part of the the phase diagram of the water system is the metastable curve. If you remember all the curves, we had sublimation curve, we have vapor pressure curve, fusion curve, and also we had a metastable curve. Now let us see as to where does this metastable curve is existing in the phase diagram of water. So, well, this is the metastable equilibrium or the metastable curve represented by OC dash curve. Okay, now it is sometimes possible while I'm moving across the curve along the curve CO. Okay, so it is sometimes possible to cool the water below its freezing point. Okay, so that means I can cool the water. The liquid state of water is here, and you know that the lowest point at which the water can exist in its liquid phase is actually the triple point, and with its respective temperature and pressure conditions specifically, of course. Yes, so if I start cooling the water below its freezing point without the separation of ice, okay, so that will be called as a super cool water. That means I am having the existence of water in the liquid phase, of course, and that too below the freezing point. And we all know that according to nature, or it is the law of nature, that any like water, if you cool it is, so what will happen? It will start separating into ice. It will start freezing up at its freezing point. Okay, at its freezing temperature. So there is a possibility that I can achieve, or I can attain this liquid water in its liquid state, of course, also below the freezing point, freezing temperature of water, without separating it into ice. And that particular state of water, it will be called as a super cooled water. Now it can be kept as such in that particular state below the freezing point in the liquid phase indefinitely if the pressure of ice or any other solid phase is carefully avoided. What I mean to say is, even if a tiny teeny weeny particle of ice comes into the system, then you cannot attain the system as supercooled water. What will happen? That very tiny particle of ice will simply act like a catalyst, let's say, and it will onset the freezing of the water. Why? Because the water has already attained that freezing temperature. So it just needs a trigger, and that small tiny particle of ice will act as a trigger over here. Okay, so the vapor pressure curve CO therefore continues below the point O. Now this is a condition wherein I have water in the liquid state itself, yes, and it has not separated into the solid state, that is the ice. So in that particular condition, what will happen? This curve CO, it continues below the point O as it is shown in the figure over here, that is up till OC dash. Okay, and this is called as the metastable equilibrium, because as soon as a small tiny particle of ice is brought into contact with the super cool liquid water over here, the entire liquid gets solidifies. Okay, so this is called as metastable equilibrium, and it requires a very restricted conditions of temperature and pressure to be maintained as supercooled water at this metastable equilibrium state. Now there is one more point that we can see from this figure over here, this diagram over here, that this curve OC dash, that is a metastable curve, actually lies above the sublimation curve, or above the curve OA. Okay, so from this from the position of the metastable curve also we can say that the metastable system has a somewhat higher vapor pressure as compared to the curve OA. Okay, or in other words, this metastable system has higher vapor pressure than the stable system. at any particular temperature. For example, as I talk about this temperature, suppose this is the temperature point, and at this temperature, if I want to know the position, okay, the curve AO, sublimation curve, okay, this is the point wherein the equilibrium exists between the solid and the vapor phase. Now if I further move on upwards with increase in vapor pressure, I see that I come across another curve, that is the metastable equilibrium. So simply, where am I observing it? At a higher vapor pressure, if I compare it with the stable system over here of the curve OA. So this is the metastable equilibrium. And another important aspect and the interesting aspect as well, like you are having water, still the temperature is below 0 degrees centigrade. That is the freezing point of water has already been attained, but the water is not getting solidified. So that is the metastable equilibrium, and it is just we say that it is the extension of the curve CO. It is an extrapolation of the curve CO. It is not any different or a separate curve which is obtained. We mentioned it in our previous video also, right? So this is about the metastable equilibrium of the phase diagram of water. Okay, now we come across some interesting terminologies that we had been discussing time and on, but we did not mention them separately, specifically. And first of them is the Gibbs phase rule. Now, what is actually a Gibbs phase rule? Often a question is asked in the exams. Okay, the theoretical exams, they carry either they give it as a subsection of the 5 marks or 10 marks question, or they can ask separately also. It has been asked separately also, as well as in combination with the other part of the question also. Okay, so what is a Gibbs phase rule? To understand the Gibbs phase rule, let's try to picturize something. Okay, now if I say that I have a heterogeneous system, okay, and if that heterogeneous system, it is influenced by temperature, it can be changed by the change of pressure, or let's say it can be affected or changed by the change of concentration. So these three things, if they are changing, then my heterogeneous system is changing. But it has no effect, but there is no effect, okay, of, let's say, gravity upon the system. It is not affected by the magnetic forces applied on the system. It is not affected, or it is unaffected by the application of electrical forces on the system. Okay, so that particular system which is unaffected by these external forces, electrical field, magnetic field, gravity, and so on and so forth, okay, it's not getting affected by these forces. But how is it getting affected? How is it changing? When is it undergoing change? Only and only if you change the temperature of the system, only if you change the pressure of the system. Okay, so when such system exists, then what happens? We say that it is observed actually experimentally that the sum of the number of degrees of freedom, okay, you remember the degrees of freedom, they are the temperature, pressure, and concentration. These are the degrees of freedom. Okay, so the sum of the degrees of freedom and the phases, the number of phases that are existing in that system, okay, this sum of these two let's say the terminologies of these two parts of this the variables, okay, they are actually greater than the number of components. And how much are they greater? By a number of 2. Okay, I repeat it again. The sum of the number of phases and the number of degrees of freedom, it is greater. This sum is greater by the number of components which are present in that system. And how much is it greater? It is greater by 2. Or if we just try to rearrange the different terms over here, we get F is equal to C minus P plus 2. This expression, if you remember, we had used in our previous videos of phase diagram of water, wherein we calculated the number of degrees of freedom in areas separately and along the curve separately. Also, we calculated at the triple point, from which it was attained as the value of F was 0, and we call it as non-variant or invariant system. Okay, so that is called as a Gibbs phase rule. I repeat it again. If in a heterogeneous system, it is influenced by the temperature, pressure, or let's say the concentration as well, but it is not affected there is no action upon the system by the change of gravity, magnetic force, electrical force. All these forces, they don't have any impact on the system. So in that case, what happens? The sum of the number of degrees of freedom and the number of phases is always greater than the number of components which are present in the system. And how much are they greater? It is by 2. So that is called as the Gibbs phase rule. It has a significance of its own. The phase rule has its own significance. Like for example, it can be applicable to the chemical as well as physical equilibrium. Both the equilibriums it is applicable. It is also applicable to the macroscopic systems, right? It's not only restricted to the microscopic levels. Okay, so and the equilibrium here in this particular case, it can be classified in terms of let's say number of components. The equilibrium can be classified in terms of number of degrees of freedom, okay, and in terms of number of phases which are existing. Okay, so like for example, if you remember the 3 curves, what was the equilibrium on the 3 curves? The curves, they represent the equilibrium state between the 2 phases of the water which were lying to the left and right of the respective curves. Okay, so in other words, the equilibrium can be classified in terms of number of phases, in terms of number of components, in terms of number of degrees of freedom, which is quite a different story over here. Okay, and according to this phase rule, the different systems, they behave similarly. Behave, in other words, if they have the same value for the degree of freedom. Okay, another term that we come across usually is the phase. Like just now, a few minutes back, I mentioned the number of phases. Okay, so what is the phase? It's very important for us to clear the concept of phase, because many people, they get confused, they mix up. Okay, and especially when you are dealing with the new topic over here. So what is a phase? Phase is actually any homogeneous substance. And like for example, if you mix, what happens if I mix two different things together? Okay, so like for example, I mix rice with gram, so both of them are homogeneous in their original forms, but when I mix them, what happens? So how will you decide the number of phases over there? Okay, so a phase is any homogeneous, physically distinct from the other part to which it is mixed. Like for example, rice that I mix over here with the beans or grams, it is physically distinct from that grams or beans. Okay, so any homogeneous, number 1 criteria. Number 2, physically distinct from the other part to which it is mixed, if mixed, of course. This is second criteria. And mechanically separable part of the system. Okay, that means which can be separated from the other part of the system by definite boundaries. We are not talking of any process, we are not talking of any technique or like methodology that we are going to adopt for separation. No, we are saying that can be that part of the system which can be mechanically separable from the other part of the system by definite boundaries. I know that I have mixed rice with the gram, so I know up till where that grain of rice is existing. I know the boundaries of the gram which is present in the mixture. So they both of them have their definite boundaries. They are in the solid phase, so they have definite boundaries. Okay, so they form 2 different phases of the mixture of the system. And what is my system over here? Of course, the mixture that I have created. Okay, so that is called as a phase. Okay, now for example, I say air. How do you define air? Is it carrying one phase, or let's say it's carrying 2 different phases, or let's say how many phases do they carry? How do I know? Again, go to the definition: a homogeneous, physically distinct. Remember this word, physically distinct. Okay, so many of your doubts will get cleared up while solving the questions or problems. Okay, so a homogeneous, physically distinct. Okay, and mechanically separable, and yes, of course, they have their own definite boundaries. Now when I talk of air, what am I talking about? I'm talking of a mixture of all the gases. What is air? It is a mixture of gases. Oxygen is there, nitrogen is there, carbon dioxide is there, and other gases are also present there. So XYZ. etc. ठीक है ना? तो a gas or a gaseous mixture I'm talking about. Now what is happening? This, if you see the air around you, can you demarcate, can you differentiate, okay, this much portion of the air is carrying oxygen in front of me. The portion of the air which is to my right hand side, it is carrying nitrogen. That part is carrying nitrogen. Okay, the portion of the air which is extreme, which is diagonal to me, it is carrying carbon dioxide. Can you do this exercise? No, simply no, because you cannot say where the molecule of oxygen is floating and it is intermingling with the molecule of carbon dioxide, or from where does this argon comes and pops into in between them. Why? Because gas molecules, they can diffuse very easily. Okay, so in that case, whenever we have a gaseous mixture, can you define boundaries of different gases? No. You cannot define the boundaries of oxygen in air. You cannot define the boundaries of, let's say, nitrogen in the air. So in this case, they do not carry different phases. And what will be answer then? Any gas or a mixture of gases, or a gaseous mixture, in other words, it is a one phase system. One phase, remember. Why? Because there is no interface between two different gases. There is no division line between the different gases present in that mixture, okay, in the air, let's say. Okay, so that in that case we say it is uniformly a one phase system. Remember, whenever there is a gaseous mixture of any two or three gases, it will be a one phase system. Why? Because you again keep this in mind, they do not have definite boundaries. The gases, they do not have definite boundaries, so obviously you will count all of them in one single phase, right? Okay, now if I say that you have a solution of two miscible liquids, miscible means they can mix easily into one another. Okay, so if you if you have two miscible liquids and you mix them together, what will happen? They will mix into one another, and will you be able to define the boundaries of the two liquids? No, you cannot, because they have been mixed up. They were miscible, they have mixed up into one another, and so you cannot define the boundaries. Again, when you cannot define the boundaries, the entire system, the mixture that you create or carry, it is a one phase system. Okay, as far as the solution is concerned. Okay, fine. Now if I say another example, let's say NaCl solution in water. You take a glass of water, you add salt to it, common salt, that is NaCl, okay, and you mix it well. It gets mixed up, a uniform solution is obtained, right? Can you see, okay, this part of water in the glass carries NaCl crystals, whereas the a little adjacent to it, let's say a few microns left to this part, it does not carry NaCl. Okay, you cannot, because the NaCl has completely been mixed up into the solution. You have a uniform solution. Okay, so in case of uniform solution also, wherein again you come to this point, definite boundaries, you cannot assign definite boundaries in such uniform solution. So what will be the answer now? One phase. Okay, so this will also be an example of one phase system. So this is phase actually. Okay, this is how you define phase, different phases. Okay, now let's come to another terminology, that is component. Component, as we had mentioned in our previous video also, nothing complicated. It is a smaller number of variables which are obviously independent, and they are the constituents at the equilibrium. And the components can also be defined like these are the constituents in terms of which the entire a system can be defined, or entire phase can be defined, expressed. It can be expressed either directly or in the form of chemical equations. And for calculating or determining the number of components, we have a mathematical expression, that is C is equal to N minus E, where N here stands for the number of chemical species which are present in the system. Okay, like for example, I try to dissolve NaCl in water. So what components, what chemical species are there in water in my system? actually. It will be NaCl, it will be water, and yes, of course, when NaCl has been dissolved in the water, that means it is in the aqueous state. So it will be having Na plus ions, it will be having a Cl minus ion, and so on and so forth. So these are the chemical species which are present in the system. Okay, and E stands for the number of independent chemical reactions that you can write for that particular system and the various species that undergo those reactions. Okay, so all the reactions that you can write for the system to describe the system, they will be counted all together as number of equations, and they'll be giving us the value of E over here. This will be using, expression will be used up in the future further problems related to the phase rule. Okay. Now let's start with our first problem. We have a system wherein water is in equilibrium state with the water vapor. So these two things are present. Let's say things over here. Okay, then we'll say what are these. Okay, I mean, are the phases, are the components, or what do they stand for actually? Okay, now we have, just try to imagine this problem. You have water and you have water vapor. That means you have water vapor just above the level of water in a container, let's say a pan or a bowl or any container that you are carrying the system with. Okay, now this system, what is it made up of? Overall, if you try to determine water, what is it made up of? H2O. Water vapor, what is it made up of? H2O. So what is the component of the system? It is only H2O. Okay, so a system so this actually is a system which consists of water in contact with its vapor phase. So how many components are there? Just one component. And what is that? Water, H2O. So the value of C is directly, you can say it is 1 over here. Okay, now to define this system, water and water vapor, either the temperature or the pressure is required, because you know it very well. You heat the water, you'll get water vapor above the level of above the surface of water. Okay, so either the temperature or pressure is required to define it completely. So what is the number of degrees of freedom? Definitely either temperature or pressure. That means one of them is sufficient, and you know, whenever you change one of these parameters, the other one gets adjusted to it accordingly. Okay, so here the number of degrees of freedom is 1. Why? Because only one parameter is required to be changed to define the system or acquire this system. Okay, so the number of degrees of freedom is 1 over here. That is, the value of F is 1 over here, and hence it is a univariant system. Okay, so these kind of problems will be coming up in our exams. So don't get don't lose your hope. It's very easy. Only the concept of number of phases, how many phases are present, how many components are present, what is the degree of freedom, this concept should be clear in your mind, and that you can clear it if you repeatedly view the previous videos. Okay, so we'll discuss more problems upon this topic.